Welcome to your video on literal equations. The first thing we're going to talk about is actually what is a literal equation. And what you can think of it as, it could be considered a formula, which is basically an equation that has multiple variables. An example would be something that you might have seen in science class, distance equals rate times time. Sometimes the rate is referred to as the velocity, so you might have even seen distance equals velocity times time. But it has several variables. What we're going to do is solve for just one of the variables. So let's say we knew how long it took we knew how far you had to go on a trip, and we knew that you were going to drive at, say, 65 miles per hour. We could figure out the time that it took you to get there just by manipulating this equation to solve for t instead. So that's what we're going to work on. We have some examples here. This first one, and as you look at these equations are going to look weird. You've probably solved an equation before at some point in your life, but maybe not one that had all letters in it or variables. So our first equation says P plus C equals R, and we want to solve it for P. So what we want to do is we want to get P by itself or get P alone. So in order to do that, we have to get rid of the plus C. And to get rid of something, you want to just do the opposite. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract C from both sides. When you think about an equation, think about it as being balanced. And if you take something away from one side of the equation, you have to do the exact same thing on the other side. So when you see that red underlining there for the minus C, that just means we did it to both sides. So what happens on that left-hand side is that C minus C is 0. So those are gone. And what we're left with is P. On the other side, we have R minus C. So what this could represent is P stands for profits. So if you open up a lemonade stand, to figure out your profit, you would take your revenue, which is how much money you brought in from your lemonade stand, and then you would subtract your cost. So R would be the revenue, C would be the cost. And so these equations actually represent something. It's not just a jumble of letters that we're trying to make you work through. All right, so our second one, V equals L times W. What we want to do is solve this one for L. So here, we would have length times width. In order to cancel off multiplication, we would want to divide. So we're going to divide both sides by L. This is really just a simple one-step equation here. We would have V over L equals W, and we're done. Although most people don't like to have the variable that we're solving for on the right-hand side, so you can just flip it around and say W equals V over L. All right, our next example, TU equals V plus W, and this time we want to get U by itself. So again, we look at what is being done to the U, and here we have T times U. So in order to undo multiplication, what we want to do is divide. So we have to divide both sides of the equation by T. Now on the right-hand side, we're going to divide that whole thing by T. What happens is T divided by T cancels, so we're just left with U by itself, which was our goal. And then the other side of the equation just stays like it is, V plus W divided by T. And this is what's really different. If you had numbers in here, you could do some calculating, but with variables, you just have to leave it as it is. Our last equation is the most difficult. You may recognize this one too. This one actually means something. It's perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width, and that would give us the perimeter for a rectangle. What we want to do is get W by itself. The first thing that we have to do then is we have to get rid of the 2L. If you think about your order of operations, we're reversing them. So we're undoing all of our addition and subtraction first. So we're going to subtract 2L from both sides. So we have P minus 2L, then we have 2L minus 2L. And then don't forget to bring down the plus 2W. So you kind of look at what happens here, and on the right-hand side, the 2L minus 2L is gone. That wipes each other out. On the left-hand side, we have P minus 2L equals 2W. We're almost there. Now to get W by itself, we have to divide both sides of the equation by 2. And when you get to that left-hand side again, you divide the whole thing by 2. And then the last thing you want to do is probably just write the equation in a normal order. So W equals P minus 2L all over 2. You are now done with your notes, and you are ready to begin your practice on literal equations.